John, you've worked hard. You deserve all this convenience and this luxury. But it all comes at a very heavy cost, and that cost is coming back to us right now. We could have ignored it for a very long time, but now Mother Nature is speaking to us through all these extreme weather patterns that we're seeing. We're currently in the sixth mass extinction. The last time we've seen this level of extinction was during the dinosaurs, 65 million years ago.
When you talk about extinction, you're talking about animal life. Hello everybody, welcome to the Human Exchange, or THX for short. My name is John, and THX is a platform where I like to have conversations about all things performance, purpose, and potential in a real, raw, and relevant way, covering themes in both our personal and professional areas of our lives. I like to say here at THX, I like to bring humans, not just experts, to the conversation. And today, I've got a returning human. If you have been following along this podcast, you'll remember that Melissa joined me on, I believe it was the third episode where we talked about adult friendships and connections. But today, we're going to talk about something significantly different, but still related to the human, the theme of being human. And what I want to talk about is actually I know, okay, I would have set this up a little bit, right? Because it might be surprising to some people who actually know me that I'm going to be talking about climate change, because it's not something that I'm particularly, an advocate of. And if I were to be honest, it's not something that I've also been thinking about a lot. But I can tell you two things that come to my mind when I was just reflecting on how I came to this realization and how it impacts even the way I live moving forward. And two incidents stick out quite obviously, right? One of it is a couple of years ago, I actually had a conversation with this guy. And, it was an ordinary conversation, but then we went into the topic of kids, children, starting a family. So at a point of time, we were both newly married. And this guy struck me to be somebody who is a pretty regular guy, wouldn't have any too out of this world ideas or different kind of like thought patterns. But he mentioned this to me. He said, you know what, I'm not going to have kids. And I'm like, why? And he said that, I feel it's morally wrong to bring new life into a world that is doomed. And I thought, like, is this guy being dramatic or what? So I kind of asked him what he meant. He talked a lot about, he mentioned a little bit about societal decline, but he also talked a lot about how the planet's stuffed and everything like that. And at that point of time, I just thought, this guy is just whack. Like, okay, you're being dramatic, you're being crazy. But then fast forward to 2025, two things, right? So kind of like, I got two things, but I got two things in one, has a sub point in one of those things, right? One of it was, I was scrolling on Instagram, as you would usually do, doom scrolling, and I came across this reel from this, he was some thought leader or some qualified guy. For the life of me, I cannot remember who that person was, but I can remember the feeling that I got looking at that reel. What the guy was basically saying was that it's too late for the Earth. The Earth is already messed up. Things are bad. There's only so much that you can do now. You should just hope for the best. And that filled me with a lot of fear. And I think about even just my own experience, right? Malaysia, I lived in Malaysia for most of my life. I've noticed that the weather, the heat has always been there, but the weather in Malaysia has just been unbearable in the last 2 years. Like it's just so hot that it gets to you, right? And growing up in Malaysia, I'm used to it, but now I actually feel I'm not. And the other thing is, of course, hearing of the different floods that happen a whole lot, right? Floods used to be something that you think far, far away on the East Coast. But now it's something that actually happens to people I know. People actually get displaced from their homes, lose possessions and everything. So anyway, that's a long introduction, but I just wanted to kind of like set it up a little bit. Yeah, that's what we want to talk about today. But before we jump into the topic, maybe for the benefit of our listeners, Melissa, I think maybe you can tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you've been on the show, but maybe this could be some people's first introduction to the show and to you. So maybe you can just say a few things about yourself and you can add into whatever I've just said.
Cool. And thanks so much, John. First, I'm so proud of you for following that curiosity and that sense of hopelessness and fear, because it is one that usually people turn away from.
Yeah.
Especially with something as big as a climate crisis. And instead you turn towards it and then started pursuing it. So big hats off to you. So hi everyone, I'm Melissa. And I've been a climate change and sustainability advocate for the last 7 years and living a zero waste life here in Malaysia. I've gone down many rabbit holes, starting with low waste living here in Malaysia, but then I started noticing how everything is related to climate change. All the things that are happening, actually every area, every issue that you see, climate change's footprint is on everything. And it really brought me to trying to understand the big picture and seeing where are the levers that we can pull as individuals to really take tangible, meaningful climate action, because we all have influence, even if we're one person. Yeah, and to answer, thanks for that introduction, Mel, and to kind of like answer, you've been proud of me. Well, I'll be honest, those two things were linked, because remember I said that there was this guy, he said that he didn't want any kids, and then of course that doomsday reel that I watched, it made me realize, hey, after I leave, maybe there's a few things. One is, after I leave this planet, my kids will still be here, and if they decide to have kids, or what if they don't decide to have kids because of the state of the planet? That's one thing. So I'm thinking about the future of the human race, right? Not my kids, the human race, and everybody else's children. The other thing is this pure fact that, if you're unhappy with the country you live in, yeah, you move to another country, right? Maybe you want better, better education, better opportunities, or just different lifestyle. You can move to another country. But at the moment, moving to another planet is not an option. You've only got one planet. And as much as many people will kind of downplay this climate change thing, I mean, even the beloved POTUS, right? The President of the United States of America, he is treating this as kind of like a joke. So what I want to do, right? I want to state a few stats. So it's going to be a little bit dry, but I think it's important for us to understand this. So one of it is that the average global temperature is already at the 1.5 degrees Celsius limit set by the Paris Agreement. So this Paris Agreement thingy, just for everybody's info, it's an agreement signed by 196 countries sometime in 2015, where they wanted to directly address this. Right? So they've kind of like set a KPI, a target. Right? We should not let the average global temperature go more than 1.5 degrees. But at the moment, by 2050. But at the moment, 2025, we're already at that mark. Now you're thinking, okay, so what? Big deal. I'll just turn on the air condition more, or I will just drink more water, right? But to put it into context, if the Earth's global temperature goes too high, goes above this limit, we were going to be seeing things like more and more natural disasters, right? Already here, I look at these stats, right? That there are the number of climate-related disasters has increased 5-fold over the past 50 years. And over 3.6 billion people live in areas highly vulnerable to climate impacts. In 2023, over 61,000 people died from heat-related causes across Europe
alone. This is Europe, right? And heat waves in India and Southeast Asia regularly now exceeds 45 degrees. The TLDR, or the the long story short, is that whatever that we think is not going to happen is already happening. People are getting displaced. Food, the crop yield is also reducing. So while we are so used to living in an era of convenience, we can grab groceries and whenever we're hungry, we just buy something, whether it's off the street or at the supermarket here in Malaysia. But there is a reality where we could be one day be faced where food could only be limited to those who are the elite, right? Or are only in certain, or maybe there might be come a time where food might be rationed. We don't know, right? So I have in my mind a picture of those dystopian end times kind of movies where food is scarce, people are fighting over necessities. But according to a lot of experts and all the stats, I don't want to go into it, that is a distinct possibility in the next 50 to 100 years if we're not careful. So that's kind of like, I'm a data guy. So when I look at that, I go like, crap. We better do something about this and we better start caring. So I think for me, being confronted with this reality, I have two options. I can either go, oh, okay, whatever, I'll just let it be. Or I can go, man, this is something to think about and potentially do about. So that's kind of like where I am at. Mel, you mentioned zero waste living. So maybe like we can start off with that. What's zero waste living and how did you get into that?
Zero waste living is to live with creating as little impact and as little waste as possible. And then to really push the boundaries of what that could be. So it was a movement that started, in this last decade and really picked up steam before the pandemic. Because it really showed people the potential of what I as one person can do. And for us to never underestimate that. A lot of the waste and emissions and impact that we cause is invisible to us because, like you said, everything I can pick off the shelves, I can get it from the supermarket, but everything we do has a upstream impact from where it originated from to where it will go after I'm done downstream. And the thing is, we're consuming way more than we ever have compared to past generations. And then we do it unconsciously as well. And it has built into the system. With the amount of marketing we receive, with the amount of consumption, we're motivated and manipulated into doing. Again, this is like a runaway train that we kind of seem to not have a handle on. And we're doing it because we have been told that this is what we need, that this is what we deserve. John, you've worked hard. You deserve all this convenience and this luxury. But it all comes at a very heavy cost. And that cost is coming back to us right now because, like you said, we could have ignored it for a very long time, but now Mother Nature is speaking to us through all these extreme weather patterns that we're seeing, through all these, extinctions. We're currently in the 6th mass extinction. So the last time we've seen this level of extinction was during the dinosaurs, 65 million years ago. And
when you talk about extinction, you're talking about animal life disappearing from the earth. Wow.
Yeah, so entire ecosystems that are just being wiped out. A lot of them before we've even discovered them. So right now in the forests of Borneo, there are scientists and photographers that are, racing against time to take as much documentation before they go extinct. So they might be discovering it for the first time and then it goes extinct.
Wow.
So we are related to our natural world in every single decision and way that we do things. But that's because we kind of separated ourselves from our natural ecosystem and not seeing ourselves as part of the ecosystem. And of course, all those impacts are coming back to us because what happens to the ecosystem that we should be nurturing will then affect how we continue to survive or thrive.
Hi everyone, before we continue with our conversation, I want to take this moment to ask a favor from you. If you have been finding the content and direction of THX to be valuable, can you do me this one favor and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well as the Spotify platform? This will give me an indication or an idea of how helpful or how valuable what we've been doing here at THX would be to you. And if you want to go even a step further, I want to invite you to subscribe to our Substack at thehumanexchange.substack.com. It's a mailing list, and the intention that I have behind that is to give you further insights to some of the topics that we've been talking about, as well as build a community that will be interested in exploring the themes of performance, purpose, as well as potential in both our professional and personal lives. Thanks everybody, and now back to the episode. You know, I'm reminded of the time when we were in COVID. I mean, it was a bad time for a lot of people in many different ways, but one of the, I guess, positives that came out of COVID was the earth was healing itself, wasn't it? When human beings ceased most of their human activity, I think the picture or the pictorial representation of that was when, wasn't there like dolphins or something that came up to, what was that? Do you know what I'm talking about? It was something very, very bizarre, like dolphins coming up to okay, this may sound really, really stupid, but I may be getting it completely wrong, but it was something like dolphins coming up to like the rivers of Venice or something like that, right? Like it's basically a sight that was normally unseen in natural times. But essentially the point I'm trying to get at is that the planet was getting better, but simply because human beings ceased most of their activity, staying at home and everything like that, that should have been some kind of wake-up call. But I think we came back with a revenge post-COVID, right? Everybody just, the minute lockdowns were lifted and vaccines were given and people were told, okay, you're free to go about now, we all came back pretty hard and we just went back to exactly what we were doing. And the point of, you talk about the heavy costs and us taking things for granted, it's so real, isn't it? And I think one of the biggest problems is that we are told that, or we take a lot, but we rarely give back. We take a lot and we don't realize how much we're taking. And this is not just from the environment. Sometimes it's also in relationships, or relationships break down because we take or we expect more than we give back. And come to think of it, we have been taking so much from the planet. Have we really been giving back? So I think zero waste is kind of like being very conscious of that, controlling that. But is there some form of how do I now give back to the earth as well?
Lovely. I appreciate how you've put that. Because I think in the dynamic of an ecosystem, all good. In the dynamic of an ecosystem, it's like Newton's third law. Every action has an equal reaction. So every action we have also affects something in the ecosystem. And like you said, when we all paused our excess of human activity, we were all, majority of us, staying in our homes, connecting with our family. We still had food, shelter, water, the things that we need. And then what we lacked was connection. And then we found ways to overcome that by connecting with each other. And through that action of pulling back our consumption and our human activity, and you saw how nature rebounded. So an action, an equal reaction. So when it comes to, what was the question again?
Giving back.
Right.
Like basically that, there's zero waste is about giving. We talk about controlling, but does it involve giving back to the environment as well?
So when people see giving back to the environment, they often see it as a one-off thing. Like let's say, oh, John, let's go do a beach cleanup, and that's how we'll give back to the environment. that's a very one-off thing instead of a systemic process thing. So the impact that it can have, while it's great, is very limited and doesn't have long-standing changes. What we want to do is really create an action that forms a reaction that is self-sustaining, that has a long-term impact, that continues to pay you dividends on how you contribute to the planet. And that's what zero waste living really is to re-engineer and reprogram the way that we live so that we can maximize the well-being of our living earth, but the well-being of us as well. Because the way we consume and live right now, we might think is awesome, but it really isn't. That's why we're in the middle of a loneliness epidemic. That's why people's mental health issues are skyrocketing. That's why we are, feeling as disconnected, not only to our natural planet or each other, but to ourselves as well. This culture of convenience, this culture of consumption, it robs from us. Even though it might feel good in the moment, it's really because our dopamine centers have been hijacked, not just through social media, but through every click of add to cart or this next thing I have to consume. So zero waste living then brings you to reimagine what a life perspective, a mindset would be, re-engineering the OS system of your brain of how do I make choices that are not only good for me, but good for the planet? And what is not good for me or good for me might be completely different from how you understand it right now. Again, what do we need as human beings? Connection, shelter, food, water, clean air, and all of these things. These are our well-being markers. And the way we consume right now by, say, shopping or traveling to the next destination that will, that will look great on social media, it might have the semblance of meeting these needs, but it's only on the surface. The heavy costs underneath through what we give up in terms of our time, our energy, our intention, what we want to pursue meaningfully, that has been the cost that we don't see that is being traded.
Yeah, and it's also costs we don't see and costs we're not bearing yet because we're passing it to the next generation, right? Like for example, travel, planes, they emit a lot. The emissions of transportation, not just planes, it's very, very high. It contributes to this thing called greenhouse gases, right? So greenhouse gases, CO2. The other one is methane. I don't know what the actual chemical composition is. I was never great at chemistry. And the other one is nitrous oxide, right? And then of course the other F gases. So transportation contributes to that carbon footprint. That's why I think a lot of celebrities in the States, they get criticized if they jump on a plane just to, travel a couple of miles because they're adding to that carbon footprint. That's one thing that we don't see. It adds up, right? And the planet is slowly deteriorating, but you don't feel it yet because you're still in that blanket of comfort and convenience. But you might not live on to the time where the consequences actually become real. But then, like I mentioned, your children or everybody else might have that. That's one thing, the cost. And the convenience factor, I will be the first to admit I'm a creature of convenience. I'm a creature of comfort. It really requires such a fundamental shift in the way we think and the way we are willing to live, because it's built into everything that we're doing right now. I think about my own lifestyle. So I live a pretty busy life, and I rely a lot on Grab food, because that not only provides meals for myself, but for my family as well. And Grab food is also something that sustains other people. It gives jobs to people, right? But the fact that but Grab food not just increases the use of transportation, like motorcycles and everything, but also all the plastics, the single-use plastics, which, like you mentioned, doesn't go away. You use it, you throw it away, but it does not disintegrate. It stays intact, and then it affects, gets into the ocean, gets into microplastics all over the place. Like, okay, I'm rambling a little bit, but all my point is that it's widespread. It's inbuilt into the way we live. It's widespread. The effects, just because we don't see it or feel it, does not mean it's not there or that it is coming. And give me then an example of what routine or what habit living zero waste would be.
Okay, let's use this Grab food example. We think it might feel good to order delivery. We feel like we have everything at our fingertips. I can pick from 100 different restaurants nearby instead of the 2 shops downstairs. And then it comes in packaging, and then we eat it at our desk, and then we throw it away, and blah, blah, blah. But a zero waste practicing person would instead go, okay, how can I support my local small business downstairs, and how can I do it with as little waste and impact as possible? So now I'm going to bring my own container. This costs me nothing. It's just a habit that I already have. And then I go downstairs. I can either eat at the shop. So now I have a relationship with the auntie that always serves me. And now this ambient interaction is actually forms part of our social budget for the day as well. Not budget's the wrong way. These ambient social connections are actually quite important as well. And then these are the things that we're cutting off. We don't have a relationship with our Grab driver, but we might have a relationship with the auntie that sells us the morning pao every day when we go to work. So instead of having a rushed lunch where we spend half an hour deciding what of the 100 options do I want to have, which deal do I want to apply, which, we're actually losing time already. This half an hour, I could have used it to take a walk so that I actually get out of my chair, go downstairs and take a walk to the coffee shop or restaurant downstairs, say hello to the same auntie every day, be able to sit down and use real cutlery and real, crockery to be able to enjoy my meal slowly, maybe with a colleague instead. So now we have connection. I didn't create any waste so far. Instead, I supported the local small business downstairs. I had connection with my friend or my colleague, and I enjoyed my meal slowly with real cutlery. It never actually feels good to use that plastic fork, eating from a plastic bowl.
Oh yeah, no, I hate it. Yeah.
You hate it, and yet you do it. So it's like this perception of abundance of choice and convenience. You actually traded 30 minutes of choosing with 30 minutes of deep conversation, of enjoying it from a plate, of creating that connection. So just doing that shift, you will see that I actually added well-being points to my bank, even though it might seem like the person with Grab food is winning.
And that requires a bit of two things, I guess, to be a bit more conscious, aware and mindful of what you really need. Because like you mentioned, a lot of us are surviving on dopamine hits, right? When we are stressed or when we feel like we need some kind of relief, we look to the quick fixes. So yes, adding to the shopping cart, and then scrolling, and if at Grab food, having the abundance of choice, it satisfies that because if you were to go down to the shop below, you are limited to those choices, right? But those choices are not necessarily bad, because if you think about it, food is food, right? If you have food to sustain you, to give you energy and nutrients, that's good enough. But in our overconsumptive nature and culture, we are now told that it's not enough to just get the energy and the nutrients. I must now have my other desires fulfilled, whether it's my desire for variety or my desire for certain tastes, whatever it is, right? So that kind of drives a lot of our behaviors. So that's the mindfulness part of it, whether we're even mindful. And that robs us of a genuine satisfaction that comes through actual human interaction. The other thing is whether we have a long-term mindset, I suppose, because living that kind of life or having that kind of routine rather, it may not satisfy, it may not give you the quick hit a dopamine hit gives you, right? There's the rush of sensation of positivity, but it feels good. It feels better in the long run. Simple fact is, or simple example would be, if I sat down with somebody and a meaningful connection or conversation with them, I may not be feeling great at that moment, but even post-conversation, I may not be feeling that rush. But somehow throughout the day, I have that sense of peace. I don't know what you call it, like satisfaction or joy, like, wow, okay. I feel more in touch with myself, more in touch with my values, with who I am, simply because I got to spend time with somebody as compared to like that rush 30 minutes lunch that I am doing in the name of efficiency. But the fact of the matter is, I think many people, myself included, were entrenched in that ecosystem and landscape, and it's hard to break out of. Because I think about it, convenience is like one of the driving factors, or one of like the goals that, for lack of a better word, the economy uses to boost things up, right? Because think about it, you sell things, right? You feed off people's desire and want by selling things to feed those desire and wants, but then you also increase your revenue or increase your sales by continuously growing that people's desires and wants. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. And it really, really takes a lot of effort and also being mindful to break out of that, which I feel like you kind of like have put a lot of effort into doing. Would you say so?
It's like habit building. So actually, we've been programmed into this convenience. Do you remember when these apps started appearing? And then they had to use deals to get you to come onto the app. And then once they built that habit in you, for you to like turn to the app to think about food, instead of thinking, what do I want to eat downstairs or what do I want to make myself? That also took effort from them. How do I program John to turn towards this app? I make it as easy as possible for you. I give you deals after deals after. I create this circuit of dopamine in your head so that now you're chasing that dopamine. I love that you put it as this short hit compared to the slow burn of the things that you actually earn that give you long-term well-being. So now what we're doing is reprogramming. So unprogramming from this program that we didn't actually ask to be a part of, but now we are in. So when you restart that as well, you see that they had to give you a lot of deals for you to continue to like make the first order, and then make the 5th order, make the 10th order. By the 15th order, it's automatic already. No deals, so you come already. Correct? Yep. So the same thing, for you to unprogram and reprogram, it's deciding what values are important to you. For me, it was, I cared about our living planet and I cared about my plastic footprint. So then I started thinking about ways I can avoid it. And then driven by those values, I started to practice the habit and then reinforce the habit. So now it's second nature to me. You can give me 100 deals there and it would not even have that pull on me, that mechanism that is so easy for them to pull and manipulate us to do an action. Now I can just look at it and be like, okay, that's nice, whatever. And I want to go have lunch with John instead. So it does take intention at first, but then after that, it becomes easy because it is now your new programming. And what you'll find on the other side of that, for me, it just kind of liberated me. So my former life was as a shopaholic. Instead of studying for my exams, I would be motivated by, it's summer sales right now. So I'll be spending time in the mall instead. And then I study late into the night. I trade all these hours, which could have been put to the things that I value, the goals that I want to achieve, and I'm turning it towards consumption. when online shopping became a thing, I was already at work. And the moment the email came into my inbox to say today is a 50% off sale, I would start scrolling immediately, looking for something to buy, not because I needed something. I felt like I needed to get that dopamine hit because that joy, that so-called joy of saving 50% off was waiting for me. And I was just chasing that hit. So I spent hours then online scrolling, and then I worked OT later that night. So see, I traded my time to chase this dopamine. And to unprogram that was, well, I think it was simpler for me than most people because I just focused on my values. And then after that, I realized you can send me as many emails, it could be 80% off, and I would not blink an eye. So it used to be, they just needed to send me an email and it manipulated me into trading hours of my life. Every month, every dollar that I spent was also hours of my life. So I think we always see money as a resource, but we don't see that eternal truth of time equals money it still stands there. Every 100 ringgit that I spent was 100 ringgit of my time that I could have been spending with my friends and family instead. And now I have to spend it at work because I have to earn back that 100 ringgit. So it feels freeing to not even be faced by temptation anymore. You know that feeling of like, are you sugar addicted?
Me?
Sugar and caffeine addicted?
I want to say no, but the answer is yes.
Okay.
I have a very, very, very massive sweet tooth, and it's bad.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I really do empathize. I empathize. I have the same thing. And then when you get in that mode of craving,
yeah,
your mind kind of like blacks out, and that's the singular thing you focus on now.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not even like you black out. You're just doing it without thinking about it. Like for me, it's really like if I work in various offices throughout my life, right? And some offices have an abundance of snacks. Like the pantry is just like a sin bin, right? You go there and you've got all kinds of like chocolates, cookies, and everything. And for me, it's a mindless thing, right? Where every time I walk past the pantry, I'll just pick out a few things. Or if I feel like I'm a little bit hungry or I feel peckish, I'll just pick up like whatever that's in the pantry, and they're all like the sweet stuff. I've only started to kind of like be more conscious of it because the waistline, now I'm like approaching the big 4-0. So I realized that my metabolism is nowhere near than it was before. But anyway, I digress. Going back to your point, it's, where you're so driven by certain behaviors, you actually don't even stop to think about what do I truly value. Like you're just driven by that. It's that quick hit, that sale. I'm also a bit of a shopaholic. My number one enemy that I'm trying to break up with is ASOS.com.
Wow.
Like, okay, I don't know whether ASOS will sue me or whatever, or maybe now they'll start sending me more deals, but ASOS is great at this. Honestly, I'm not even kidding. ASOS drops like sales like nobody's business. Every couple of months, you can get, couple of weeks even, you can get a 20-30% sale. If you miss one, don't fret, they'll come out with one in 2 weeks, right? And they'll find any reason to give you discounts. Like Chinese New Year, even though it's a UK website, hey, buy something yourself for Chinese New Year. Your birthday, buy something, So Black Friday, buy something. So we're then now not aligned with our values, and that's where we get caught up in all of this, or even not aware of our values, and we get caught up in these things, right? And I think you made a very, very pertinent point. We need to define our values, but also in particular in this area, how do we want to live our life, and how do we want to, and what is our perspective towards taking care of, like the earth and the environment. So then the question is, Mel, somebody will be asking then, why should I care? Why should I care about the planet? I mean, the fact is, yes, we only have one planet, but how would you approach this if somebody would say, I'm not sure, why should I really care? Can I really make a difference? You're only one individual. So what if you say no to fast fashion, if you say no to delivery, but everybody else is doing it, so what's the point? Like, how would you address these kind of questions and mindsets?
Okay. I'm also I'm cognizant that I'm noticing that we actually didn't talk about climate change, and I don't know whether it's it's worth.
Earlier in the room, you said that climate change is in every conversation, whether you realize it or not. So
yeah. In a nutshell, climate change is connected to it's directly linked to carbon emissions, and carbon emissions is in the way we live.
Yep.
So the way we travel, the way we consume, everything that you touch around you has carbon emissions linked to that. And it's the amount of carbon emissions that we put into the air, into the atmosphere, that thickens that greenhouse gas layer that is causing the temperature rise. And then that causes a whole whirlwind of knock-on effects through the entire climate system. So the way that you live right now, as comfortable as it may be, it will continue to get more uncomfortable as we continue to live this way, as we continue to emit this much carbon emissions and at this rate. So think about all the things that matters to you in your comfort. Do we like balmy weather where we get to sit outside and breathe fresh air? That will continue to suffer. Like 39 degrees is not foreign to Malaysia anymore. Now it's almost like a norm. And anyone can tell you the moment you step outside of an air-conditioned room, you are like literally suffering already. Do you remember what it feels like to take a walk? And are walks going to be something that you cannot access anymore?
Or it's going to be something novel that you can only do once in a while.
Yeah, once a while, at midnight maybe. So what about the coffee that you like to drink every day? Coffee is one of the critical crops that are severely affected by climate change. So the supply chain is actually kind of like a pack of cards right now. And coffee suppliers around the world are worried about how they're going to continue to produce to the coffee demand because, as supply shrinks, that means the prices go up. There have actually been quite a few businesses and startups out there that are, going into coffee alternatives. So coffee made from bread, coffee made from, different things, and they make it flavored like coffee and still have caffeine, but the caffeine comes from tea.
That sounds horrifying.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to make it as, similar to coffee as possible, but what is it trying to address? Because they can see this very huge gap in the market of the coffee that you're drinking today is not going to be a continued supply. It's going to continue to suffer because of climate change, because of the weather changes. You and I have a sweet tooth. Did you notice that our favorite chocolates are now twice the price that they were 5 years ago? I can't eat my Lin and Whittaker anymore. I have to really budget for my favorite chocolates because it increased twice in price. And it's not because Malaysia ringgit dropped to USD or Malaysia ringgit dropped to New Zealand dollar or AUD. It's because the cocoa supply is shrinking.
Yep.
The cocoa supply is severely affected by climate change. And businesses around the world are scrambling to try and secure their cocoa supply.
And I think now we're talking about luxury items or nice to have items, things like chocolate, coffee. But if we are not careful, this would then creep into things that are need to haves like rice, even like meat produce and everything, because there is a risk to agriculture because of climate change. So yeah, it's like you said, now the nice to have things are getting more expensive. So we can kind of like mitigate it by going for alternatives or just not having that. But what happens when it starts creeping into the necessities? Like what happens if like rice, increases by a certain amount, which is, I think, very possible. That's what experts are saying. And you may even reach a point where even if you have money, you may not be able to buy the amount that you want because it's going to be rationed because of the huge risk and the huge threat, rather the word's threat, to the agricultural space and industry. So yeah, it is. I think it's something that, if to answer the question, why should you care? It's like, man, if you're faced with these facts and you don't care, then I really don't know what else to say. That's for me. I don't know whether you have any other forms of encouragement, but for me, it's like, okay, what more facts, or what more, how much more do you need to know when it's already blatantly staring you in the face?
Yeah. And I would invite anyone to go down that horrific rabbit hole just so that it really, as emotionally damaging as it is, it actually really helps you see clearly of what reality is and of where we need to go. I love that you brought up needs, because desertification of agricultural lands is a very serious issue. The way we grow in monoculture it literally kills the land that gives you life. So there's only a time period that you can grow on it, but also because of weather changes, with droughts, with extreme heat, these lands are not able to be grown on anymore. So in countries like Vietnam and our neighboring countries that export food to us, they're abandoning the fields because they cannot grow on it anymore. So the farmers, again, displacement, and the people who are most impacted by climate change are the ones that contribute the least to it. Farmers are going bankrupt around the world, even though they're the ones that are providing us our food supply. Without them, we starve. And they are the ones that are facing the brunt of it, because with extreme weather patterns that you cannot control and that continues to be exacerbated by the way we live here in the modern world, it only takes one flood to wipe out a crop. It only takes one heat wave to wipe out a crop. And there's only so much you can mitigate to actually cut off an entire supply system of the very food that we need.
Yep.
And it's truly terrifying. Like, I don't think we notice and we realize how much that availability of food is taken for granted just because it shows up in the stores of a grocery store. What it took to get there, all you need to know is ask any urban gardener, or you yourself try and grow something at home. In a very controlled condition, you try and grow one tomato and you see how hard it takes you. Then you start to think, oh my gosh, all these factors had to be just right for me to be able to grow this one tomato. And then that amount of time, resources, energy, and really management of how can I keep this thing healthy. Once one factor is affected, your tomato is dead. You don't have a tomato to eat. And that's literally how our food system is operating right now.
Yep. That is coming from, on the issue of why we should care, right? That is coming from the reality aspect, because the reality is, as we've been saying over and over again, we're all going to pay for it. All of us, we're going to pay for it. Rich, poor, maybe some people will pay for it more, like the farmers, but eventually everyone's going to be feeling the effects of it, right? Because even things like the rising sea levels would put coastal cities at risk. So cities like Jakarta, and all that, they're going to put them at, because floods could happen there, and you'll be a rich person living in Jakarta, so that's going to affect you, right? So that's one thing. But the other aspect is, I think, when I talk about legacy, when I talk about how we want to live as human beings, because without wanting to be too philosophical, right? I like to be as practical as I can possibly be, but I think one of the advantages, for lack of a better word, of being human is that we have this thing called legacy. We have this thing called values. We have this thing called purpose. And I would say for the future of the human race, where we go from here, is we have to kind of like have the ability to step away from step out of our own shoes, right? And start looking around and thinking, how am I contributing to those around me, including the planet? Empathy is a big thing now in the business world. Everybody's talking about empathy, having a high EQ in leadership, being empathetic, understanding your customers so that you can, better sell to them, blah, 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 blah. So empathy is a big thing right now. But empathy is also, I believe, should be a core value to being human, because that is what separates us from non-sentient beings, right? That's what separates us from animals. Now, animals have this instinct where they would care for their young, yes. But very few would have this instinct to care for their entire species. They would just care for their young, they're driven by survival. But my question is that as human beings, shouldn't we go beyond that point, right? Shouldn't we not just be thinking about surviving, but thinking about actually thriving collectively, globally, as people? So I would appeal to those who feel like this is something that's not that doesn't concern them and everything. And I would say absolutely does, not just from a practical point of view, in the sense that it will affect your life or your children's life at some point, but spiritually, emotionally, mentally, right? Is this the kind of person that you want to be, driven by your impulses that are manipulated by corporations? A person who is not aware of their values, they just kind of like live life, or a person who has very self-centered values. My big question to these people would be, is that who do you want to be? Is this the kind of choice? Are these the kind of choices you want to make and then have your life defined by that? So I will use my example, right? So I'm a bit like you. I can be a shopaholic, especially when in my younger days. In my younger days, I was in front of people a lot more. I'm in front of people now, but back then, when you're younger, the need to impress people was definitely higher, right? So I would always want to, get something new into my wardrobe every couple of months. But it came to a point where I start to realize, number one, I'm contributing a lot of waste. Secondly, I'm spending a lot of money that can be better spent elsewhere, because clothes are also not cheap. And the worst is, if you go for the cheaper alternatives, you end up spending more in the long run because they don't last, and then you just keep buying, right? But thirdly, I had to ask myself this question: am I really defined by the clothes that I wear and the things that I own? Not that dressing well is not important, or not that having nice things is wrong, but am I really defined by this? Am I being driven by this? And the simple question is, do I have things, or do things have me? And I think that's a fundamental question we should ask ourselves. This is our planet. If an alien were to come, or if they've already been here, and they look at the way we treat this planet, what would they think? If you believe in God, right? If God were to look at us collectively as human race and go, how have you been treating this planet? Would he go, oh, okay, understandable? Or it's like if you went to somebody's home and you saw that the way they lived in that house was torrid, like they didn't upkeep it, they didn't maintain it, it's terrible, or it's patchwork, right? You kind of be like, I think this is not the best way, right? So yeah, I feel like that's what is driving me. And my hope when we talk about this topic is not that we would instill a 180-degree behavioral change in people, but at least for whoever's listening here to start thinking about these things, being aware, and then maybe start seriously considering some of the choices that they make every day.
Yeah. I love how you put it. We are not our things. We are not defined by the things that we own. We're not defined by how much we consume. actually why we all kind of suffer some sort of personality crisis or mental health crisis is because we're not actually in contributor and creator mode. We're in consumer mode. And we've been put into that box. But when you feel the most purposeful is when you're part of the bigger picture and when you know what your role is and how you can impact change in how you live and how the people around you live. What do you want to see created in the world is a question that I always ask. Do you want to see us all more connected? Do you want to see us more with deeper relationships? Do you want to see us living in a Malaysia that is, with good weather and with fresh air and with the ability for us to walk outside and be connected to our kampong, our neighbors? To do all of that, you are actually a creator of that reality. Even though your surroundings now might look completely different, you actually have the ability to start being the drip into the culture. Because when we look at what our societal culture is right now, we might go, oh my God, why does it look like this? This is terrible. Things used to be better back then, we will say. But we are part of culture. And just because this is your current culture, realize that what drip you have into it creates a reaction, creates a ripple, creates a new way of doing things that just needs to be reinforced and then spread outwards. And it's as simple as in zero waste living, for example, abstaining from single use. Bring your bottle, your bag and container and make it normal to bring a bottle and bag container. My allies in this space, Zero Waste Malaysia, they started with 2 people that started bringing a bottle, a bag, a container, and started talking about zero waste living. Now there are 40,000 people in that group talking about zero waste living and then finding ways to see how they can impact their community around them through the actions that they take. I always say that my influence doesn't just come from talking, it actually comes from example. For example, from a shopaholic, I haven't bought new clothes in 6 years. And I'm always in front of camera. I'm always on stage. So I'm always on social media. So of all people, I would have the most pressure to be dressed a certain way and to look a certain way. But for me to be able to do that without shopping, buying anything new for 6 years, means I found all these ways to dress myself even more fashionably than I've ever before, than when I was addicted to ASOS.com as well. And from me, I started creating, what I wanted the community to experience as well. And now the people who come to the clothes swaps that I host, the talks that I give, they started going through their own journey. So now dressing without buying anything new and with sharing and swapping and all these different methods becomes normalized. Now it's not like, how come you didn't buy from that latest sale? Now it's like, oh my gosh, you look amazing. Can I please borrow that from you? Can we exchange? Can we, how can I dress the way that feels most like me from the things I already own? We completely changed the culture. In Malaysia, we're still mainly focused on a mix between consumer side and also cultural side. So our cultural heritage is actually very strong, but you would not see it because, again, do we even wear like baju kurung, baju kebaya, and like, do we even know that, like, how kilts, Scottish kilts, they have like, this means this family, this pattern means this family. Yeah. So the kilt actually, like with each pattern, it signifies your ancestry. So in Malaysia, actually it's similar. But does anybody know that? No, they're just buying like fashion valet and they're just buying like polyester printed batik and like all of those things are being eroded. So we're also focusing on what cultural preservation actually means, because fast fashion erodes culture very quickly. It turns everything into commodification. It turns everything into a design you can exploit. And the people that are cut out, all these really like even batik printing and all that, it's being lost because it's now, it's cheaper to print on polyester and do some random design and copy it from somewhere. And then I can print like 500 pieces straight away. And then all of that is lost. So two aspects there. So for me, I like focusing on clothes swaps and on the education side of things because this whole like, I'm not enough, I must dress like you. This trend chasing is actually, I'm not enough, I must dress like that person I saw on social media, that thing I saw in Zara, and that really erodes your sense of identity. So what is actually our identity? You know, when you go into like London and you see all these people like dressing to their personality, and there's so much diversity, doesn't matter where they got it from. And here, every man is wearing Uniqlo. Every woman is wearing Zara or Shein. And then it's like, how come we're dressing alike all over the world? We have all lost our sense of identity already. So it's true that like tangible process of like baiting them into, hey, I'm going to present you with a buffet of free clothes. And then you walk in and then we're doing clothes swap, right? So you bring all your unloved things and then you exchange it with each other. Now there's this whole room full of free clothes for you. And then I bring you through a process of like, but why are you here? And why did you bring these? How did these things end up in your closet in the first place? And how can you be intentional about what you bring back? Because before that, your closet couldn't close. You want to shove the shirt in. Also, the weight of all your hangers is like breaking your cupboard already. And then when you clear that space, you're like, wow, so nice. All these things that I keep flipping through are like, I didn't look good in that. I didn't feel good in that. I didn't look good in that. I have nothing to wear, even though the cupboard cannot close. Once you step away from that and you're like, I don't want to fill this cupboard again. Actually put that intention there. I don't want to fill this cupboard again until I meet this level of joy. So the discernment, building in that discernment, like how my climate mentor was, I want Japan level of beef. Not cheap ass Malaysian beef that you eat every day, Japan level of beef, because that's what I deserve. I'm going to forego all this cheap beef. I'm going to only aim for Japan beef. So same with clothing. This is going to make me feel like John. Not this is going to make me feel like that pastor in Hillsongs because he looked cool and he had the best sneakers. This makes me feel like John. This is how John dressed like. So how do you meet that level of discernment? And like, sometimes it requires a room full of clothes and you see, this is all these things that aren't right for me. Let's see if I can find a needle in the haystack. And then when you find a needle in the haystack, it's like, holy shit, it's like this piece was waiting for me. And because it wasn't on a catalog, because it wasn't on a social media scroll, it almost feels like it appears for you.
It's like you found treasure.
It's like you found treasure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and that's your, I love that. That's your contribution to this whole climate conversation, right? Because this is the space that you're playing in. And I think if all of us can find a space, whether we are contributing by building a platform, so you have made choices and you've building a platform. For the rest of us, it could be we're building a platform in other areas, whether it's more renewable energy or preserving marine life, or reducing plastic, but also our own personal choices. Like, what are the personal choices that we're going to make to contribute to this climate conversation, preservation, whatever you want to call it. So like, I think for me, I've also kind of like not set it to be performative, like I'm not going to say, I am never going to use another piece of plastic again. Because I think doing that sets you up for failure. And it also puts an unrealistic expectation on yourself, because there are times where you could turn up to that conference and they could give you that tote bag and it's impolite to say no. So you got to take it, right? In some way. To. Well, maybe I'm not as secure as
practice once, then it feels so easy after that. Then you get the new dopamine hit of like, no, thank you. It's like, now I don't have to carry this damn tote bag around this expo the entire day.
Okay, maybe it's a bad example, but it would be like, there are times where I haven't sorted dinner. I thought I would have time to get dinner for my kids. But then the meeting that was supposed to only last for an hour went to 2 hours, and now I'm behind time. I can't go and get takeout, or I can't go home and prepare a meal. I gotta use Grab. So there will be those moments where there I will have to default to my convenience, right? In order just to live, because I don't want to let my kids go hungry for a night, because I got to do it. I mean, I could, right? But my point is that I think it's really making it a very mindful and conscious decision. This is my primary option. I will not, like for example, order takeout on Grab. If I have to do takeout, I will do my very best to go to the restaurant, bring my own containers, get them to prepare the food, put it in my containers, and I bring it home. Or I prepare a meal at home. That's my first option.
Yeah.
But if somehow by any circumstance I do not meet my first option, I'm not going to beat myself up over it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to continuously live every day knowing what my first options are. So like what you said, if I need a new shirt for whatever reason, my first option would be, do I really need it? I refuse first, ask myself first, do I really need it? Why do I need a new shirt? Is it because I've gained weight, or is it because like the old one's not good or it's not fitting, whatever? So I just have to really understand that my first option is not to buy new. I have to ask myself, or then maybe I can go to a clothes swap, whatever. But if I happen to be somewhere and then, I got an important meeting and I find myself done, I got no option now, but I need to buy a shirt. So I'll buy it. Right? But that's not my first option. Right? So I think it's about that, being conscious.
Yeah.
What is your first option, and making those first options not tied to your convenience, but tied to, again, the values and the kind of like a direction that we want to take in preserving the planet.
What you're bringing up reminds me about that phrase, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. It's like how you set out your list for like, okay, tomorrow at work, these are the tasks I'm going to take care of. If you kind of rock up to work and like don't have a plan, and you kind of like, I'll do a bit of this and then I'll do a bit of that, and you actually get nowhere with any of your tasks. It's the same with all of these things. The intention begins at the beginning, and then you realize you save so much time and energy, because convenience is actually making up for all the gaps that we didn't plan.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like how a gym bro on a bulking plan knows that he's going to eat chicken breast and broccoli every day. Let's say lah. Okay? So I used to live with gym bros, right? And I would see like, there's never a day they're not eating their chicken and broccoli. They plan for their chicken and broccoli at the beginning of the week, and then the rest of the week they have chicken and broccoli. There's no like, today got, and then like that, okay, order Grab food. There's no option for that, because they already planned for it. So they automated it, they made it easy for themselves, they saved time and money throughout. So there wasn't this need for convenience in the first place. Same with the baju thing. It's like, we can actually anticipate our use to some extent. Like you might already see, for example, like, oh, this favorite shirt of mine is getting worn out. Now I need to be on the lookout for the next shirt. And we're not going to reach that point where it's, where this shirt got hole only, I want to look for it. Then it's like, it might be, oh shit, but I need the shirt tomorrow. It's like, okay, this year I budgeted for one shirt. I'm going to buy the best damn shirt on the planet.
Yep.
So I actually need time for this best damn shirt to like show up.
Yep.
Because it's not in Zara for sure. It's like some premium brand that we're gonna like feel this good. And the way of looking at life for many people, and that's just starting with 2 people in Zero Waste Malaysia, 1 Melissa here, 1 John there, 1 you there, 1 you, and then we all become lighthouses for a new way of living. And it all feeds back into what kind of world we want to create in, and what does that mean for the climate crisis. While it might seem small for us to focus on our community here, whether you see it or not, it ripples outwards. Every time I have an action, like for example, I don't want a bag, can you please put my coffee in this cup? The person behind me is the one that goes, oh, hang on, I have a cup as well. Maybe I should bring it now. And just by example, someone else shifted their behavior. So you have infinite power to be this lighthouse to be this change that ripples outwards. You don't have to actually wait for someone else. Just do it on your own and then watch how quickly people resonate to you and want to join you in this movement.
Yep. Whew. Just taking a moment here just to, first of all, inspiring. You went into some a bit of like a preacher mode, and I was just like taking it all in, very, very, very inspired. But also thinking about the way forward for us. I like how you use the word ripple effect, because we often think that, we're just one person, like can't make that much of a difference, or what I do doesn't matter in the grander scheme of things. But I'm just thinking about that quote, right, where it says, if you don't believe something small can make a big difference in your life, you have not been in the room with a mosquito. Right? So it's really us, starting from us. What kind of choices are we going to make? So that's where I want to kind of like go into as we go to the last part of our conversation. What kind of choices should we make? Conscious choices. So I think there are certain things that are obvious, right? Like, for example, you mentioned you host a clothes swap. Brilliant idea. Rather than consuming, buying a whole lot, it's really buying mindfully, right? Making sure that you're not just buying things for the sake of buying it, and then buying, I think, longer lasting things, going to thrift shops, or, change clothes swaps. One great idea. I think our consumption as well, not over consuming. So like not contributing to waste. I think one of the bad habits that we have as Malaysians, I don't know about anywhere else in the world, is when we have corporate events, we tend to have a lot of food, and that leads to huge wastages. But some time ago, I did some training for a bank, and I was very impressed when the bank actually implemented a policy where they were kind of like punish any department that has wastage. I don't know how they're going to implement that, but just those little steps, right? So just being very conscious of our consumption. Any other thoughts on on some practical ways a person can start contributing, giving back, so to speak, to the environment and the planet?
Okay, maybe it would be helpful for me to share what the practical principles of zero waste living is.
Absolutely,
because it's actually tangible action, and then how you can follow on from that. I'll start with sharing the 5 R's of zero waste. We grew up with reduce, reuse, recycle.
Reduce, reuse, recycle. Okay, that's what we grew up with. Okay.
We grew up with 3 R's. There are actually 5 R's. The first R is the most powerful R, is refuse. So we refuse what we don't need. And that makes complete sense, right? If I don't need it, why am I consuming it? That already cuts out 50% of your consumption. When you talk about corporate events, do you realize that by the end of the year, or before a major festival like Chinese New Year, Hari Raya, Deepavali, or New Year's, you start to look around your house and you're like, why is my house so full of crap? Crap I don't use, cupboards can't close, things are gathering dust, but you don't even remember how they entered into your house. All this clutter that is taking up space, we declutter. It's like a yearly exercise for people now, maybe even a monthly exercise for some. But we never needed to do that when it was our grandparents' time or our parents' time, right? Now we do it so regularly because our house is just so full of stuff. And it's because of all these things that comes in consciously, because it's so easy to, you just need to have a hint of a thought of like, maybe immediately I can already add to cart. Or when you go to a corporate event or a brand event and they go, we're so happy you could come, John. Here's a whole goodie bag of stuff. It's like mandatory or something to give this goodie bag.
Yeah.
And when you bring it home, you're like, I'm not going to use any of these things.
Yeah.
The more you take it, the more they make it. The emissions, the impact, it's all there. The waste is all there. It might not look like single-use waste, but it is actually single-use because you might not even use those things for a single time. You bring it home, you put it in a cupboard, At the end of the year, you repeat the process. Oh my gosh, why can't I even walk into my house? Why can't my cupboards close? I go through the decluttering process again. And then we repeat this vicious cycle. So whether it's free, whether it's 50% off, whether it's full price, a lot of these things we don't need. Really, if you look at how often you use it, you actually don't use it at all most of the time. Or you use it once because you feel bad. Waste life, I'll use it one time. No, thank you. No, thank you, I don't need this. Or, oh, no, thank you, I'm actually going to put the sale cart away. No, thank you, I don't need all these things coming into my life. So you save time, you save even the decluttering time. You save this energy every time you walk into the house of like feeling like, it's so claustrophobic here, it's so full of stuff. You save that, now you open up space in your life. You save time, money, energy. And just like that, you're closer to your savings goal. You're closer to spending time, money, and energy on the things that matter to you. Your hobbies, your family, your friends, all these things. So the biggest R is refuse. Say no to the things you don't need and be ruthless about it. Really take the pause until it's automated, where now when people give me something, I'd be like, what's it? What was it? Oh, actually, don't worry. I don't need 100 tote bag. Yes, it's reusable, but if I already have 100 at home, what is the 101 going to be reused for?
Yeah.
I actually only need one tote bag, not 100. So sometimes even with like eco-friendly messaging and eco-friendly stuff, it might look sustainable, but it's far from that. Because what we have to really focus on is utility. What do I need to use and how much use can we get out of it realistically? Be absolutely brutally honest with yourself with that. And that feeling, my new dopamine hit is actually to say no. No, thank you. And then when I go home with empty arms, that's like my biggest dopamine hit. It's like, wow, this feels so good. Look, I've kept my house clutter-free. You know how every time we go on holiday and we enter a hotel room, it feels so nice because there's no clutter. That's that feeling we get to create every day in our lives once we choose to automate this habit. And then of course there's reduce the things that we do need. We had this chat earlier about how much meat we consume. Meat used to be a festive occasion thing. Back in our grandparents' time, oh, it's someone's birthday, let's kill a chicken. Now we're eating meat in every meal and we're eating it in greater proportions. And the meat is getting cheaper and cheaper and unhealthier and unhealthier.
Sorry. You need to give back.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
So maybe you can start again about the part about meat.
Thank you. Okay, let's talk about reducing the things that we do need. We had this conversation about meat earlier and we did not used to consume this much meat and more people are consuming more and more. Instead of just a festive occasion thing, like in our grandparents' time where we might kill one chicken for someone's birthday, now we eat meat at every meal. And we eat this much meat and then like this much vegetables. This meat, we're clearing more land to grow grains, not to feed us, to feed an animal first to feed us.
Wow.
Very inefficient transfer of energy. So even more deforestation in order to feed us. These animals, they're not healthy. They're full of antibiotics. The chickens, they don't even have feathers on them because their skin is so inflamed. I used to go morning market shopping at the wet market and I did not like going early because that's when they kill the chickens. And then you see them crammed into these small cages. Skin all red, feathers all dropped off because that's how unhealthy they were. So people always think, hey, you need to eat meat lah because healthy for you. Is it really healthy to eat a sick animal? And not to mention like the horrible animal welfare conditions that they live in, a life full of suffering. So just shifting those proportions. Actually, one of my climate mentors told me, I'm so excited to go to Japan next month because I'm going to eat beef. And that might seem very dissonant for someone who's my climate mentor. He says, I've allocated myself 2 steaks a month. So I get 24 steaks this year. It's now July and I've only eaten 2 steaks. So I'm saving 22 steaks for Japan, where it's the top quality of steaks. We were with other people and they were eating steaks, and all he had to do was look at them and say, how's the steak? They're like, it's okay. And then he's like, I'm not going to settle for it's okay, because I only have 24 steaks a year. So he really set himself a budget and then was very discerning on what quality he wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
Because now we're consuming in a way where everything is limitless. But a lot of the things we're consuming are low quality things.
Yeah.
Things that we don't really enjoy and we're just eating out of habit. We're just consuming out of habit. The clothes we wear, fast fashion, does it really feel good to your skin? Does it really feel good when you wear it? Just because it's cheap, you bought it. Not because it feels truly good or tastes truly good or nourishes you truly well. So those are the main R's that we'll focus on today.
So it's refuse and reduce.
Refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, rot.
Oh, great. And I think on top of that, there are all the things that we kind of already know, right? So turn off the lights when you're not using them. I think one other helpful tip as well as air conditioning, rather than 18 degrees, put it to 22 to 24, a bit higher if possible. So some of these things, I think there's no lack of resources or tips or practical tips on how we can actually live this way. But it really starts from all that we were talking about, right? The awareness, and looking at the awareness, does it then cause us to reflect how have we been living our lives and what values have we been driven by, whether it's a value of consumption, or do we want to be good stewards? Do we want to leave, do we want to have a good legacy, or what kind of life, how do we want to get joy out of life? Is it through that dopamine hit, or is it through longer lasting connections, things, and all that? Wow. I feel like this is something that, we can just go on and on and on about, but I really appreciate you joining me on this platform today and talking about this topic. And you sound like you are a veteran. Well, of course you are a veteran compared to me, in this space, but maybe in closing, you can tell the audience a little bit about some of the platforms that you have, like, you have Clothes Swap, you are part of this community called Zero Waste Malaysia. Maybe that could help with more resources if people are looking to get a bit more literacy in these areas. Yeah, whatever. Just tell us more about that, where they can connect, where they can find more information, learn more and all that.
Awesome. Thanks. I'm on Instagram, I'm a Hey Melissa Tan. That's where I usually educate about how we really re-engineer the way we do things and the way we live life, and as simple as possible, as automated as possible, and as much well-being for yourself as possible. I host clothes swaps every month, so come and join those, especially if you suffer from addiction to fast fashion. It's a whole other field there. I lead Fashion Revolution in Malaysia, the Malaysian chapter. So that's where we really campaign for a fair and clean fashion industry and changing our relationship to style and fashion so that it's a lot healthier and we actually dress our best selves without causing that impact to people in the supply chain and to the planet.
Wow.
And of course, I think we've talked about my connection piece before. I'm starting my connection sessions next month, which will be announced on my Instagram as well. Because if we can't even connect to each other, how can we truly connect to the greater world? And to see our place in it as not just stewards, but change makers, influencers, really points of catalysts for things to look completely different here in Malaysia. And it all starts with you.
Great. Mel, it was again a joy and privilege to have you. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with me. And well, everybody, thank you for tuning in to THX. And if you like this episode, I encourage you to check out all the other episodes and do me a favor by liking and subscribing to the YouTube channel, Spotify, whatever. But Thanks for tuning in. My name is John, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.